Welcome to What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game. There's a lot of garbage advice and misinformation out there that can leave you feeling stumped and stuck. Together, let's sift through the sea of BS and find the best ways to get healthy and stay healthy. Join the team as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan Turo, Angela Turo, and Dr. Riley Brown.
And welcome to another episode of What the Health. I am Dr. Dan here with the co-host
Angela. Welcome back, guys.
All right. I don't think we need. Do we need to do?
I haven't even been. I just realized I didn't do it. So.
As always, this is for your informational purposes only, and under no circumstances should you take any of this information to as diagnosis or treatment of any healthcare disease intervention. Always talk with your trusted healthcare professional. Yada, yada, yada. Yes, I'm sure we put that in the comment section or in the description as well. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about
the woes of women's weight loss.
Beautiful. So why don't you give a little bit of background on this topic and what we're discussing today?
So this was inspired by, we're into a new... in March now, so several months into a new year, getting through everybody's, New Year's resolutions and people making changes. Yeah, getting back to working out, changing their diets, all of that. And just my personal, I always take this time of year to kind of sit back and listen and watch and reflect, because as somebody who I would say probably 90% of the time follows a healthy lifestyle and does what I'm supposed to do, it can be very frustrating to hear all these people that are like, oh yeah, I started going to the gym and I lost all this weight, or I cut out this one thing from my diet and I lost all this weight. And you just sit and you want to be happy for them, and I am, but it's also, but also it's very incredibly frustrating when you're like, I always do those things, and I very rarely get off track. I would say for the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've been very, very consistent with my workouts, with my diet, with stress management, with just, all of the things. And my weight still just seems to be a roller coaster. And
so that's important. Share, if you're okay with it, you don't have to give me the actual number, but like how much over the last 5 years, you said, 4 or 5 years, you've been pretty consistent with your workout, your diet, doing the things that we always talk about doing. How much in that time frame will you see your weight fluctuate? Is it 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15, 20?
So my weight can fluctuate. I mean, it could fluctuate 5 pounds in a day. It could fluctuate, honestly.
Before and after the bathroom.
Yeah, it could fluctuate. I'd say pre-COVID, it was pretty much stable for years. I gained 30 pounds during COVID. And that was just straight stress and just unhealthy stress management strategies, as I feel like a lot of people had.
Lockdowns apparently weren't a healthy thing.
No, it was very, especially for people who are socially.
Social butterflies.
The introverts might have loved it, but I did not do well.
Please check on your extroverted friends. They're not okay.
We were not okay. We were not okay. So just, for a lot of circumstances, I probably gained I was the heaviest, and I'm going to guess about 30 pounds, because I stopped stepping on the scale entirely. Yeah. And when I finally forced myself to, I was probably it was the heaviest I had ever been.
Really?
Ever.
Really?
Yeah. It was a number I never thought I would see and never wanted to see. And so that I got that back down, never to pre-COVID levels, but close. And then I'd say, when I started training for my fight, kind of went the opposite. And I was on a very restrictive diet and a very intense exercise training. And ever since then, it just kind of crept back up. And now I'm up probably about 20 pounds from my fight weight, which is not terrible.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is it doesn't respond now the way that it used to. Like in the years of my weight fluctuation, it was always, okay, I just went on a vacation, or, oh, I've been going out more, or, oh, I've fallen off my exercise. Like, there's always been a very clear reason in my mind why it's crept up. And as soon as I correct that, it goes right back down.
Yeah.
And it's been probably over the last year and a half, 2 years, where it's just been this like up, up, up. And then, I make those, oh, okay, well, I just need to make these couple changes. It'll come right back down, and it doesn't. And then it might even go up a little bit more. And then I'm like, wait, but I'm doing, I'm doing all the things. I'm doing all the things. Why is it?
Yeah.
And I've really noticed that since going into my 30s, it just doesn't seem to respond the same way as when I was in my 20s. Yeah. And I also think the extreme dieting that I did during the fight training just screwed me up. I felt like hormonally things were off. I felt metabolically, I felt like things were off. So I think it was just kind of a while to reset from that. So yeah, like I said, I mean, I've tried very much to not focus on the number on the scale, but I also know what, like, there's a range. It's not like I'm like, if I'm at this number, I feel great. There's definitely a range where I know if I'm within this 10 pounds, I feel good. I like the way I look. I like the way my clothes fit. I like the way I feel during my workouts. Yeah. Like, these are the things that I pay attention to. And when it gets a little bit above that, I'm just like, you just don't feel quite as, you just don't quite feel like yourself. You don't. Yeah. When I start finding, I'm like, oh, I don't want to see those videos. I don't want to see that picture of myself. That's when I start to know, I'm like, okay, it's not for anybody else. It's just, you have an image of yourself, and you want to feel that way, and you want to feel like other people see you that way. So that's where I've been struggling. And then you hear all these stories, my boyfriend went pescatarian a year ago, so cut out meat, all meat except fish, and just overall just very much cleaned up his diet and lost like 25 pounds like that. Yeah.
And, now, real quick though, history on that. Did he ever do any massive dietary change like that in his lifetime?
No, not that
And he was also he's very much an athlete, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was always a basketball player, and that's his main form of activity. And again,
and that's what we always talk about, right? Where a lot of times you get people who are very active when they're young, and then it's like they don't do anything. They get out of that high school, college age of athletics and working out, and even past college. A lot of times in college, you're just going to class, socializing and working out. Like that's a lot of those of us who enjoyed working out when we were younger continued to love working out, in college. And then you get out there, you start getting a career. Some people start, growing a family, and it's just like now, that time and intensity of working out really, really shrinks. And that, sometimes can go a year, 5 years, 10 years until now you're in your 30s, and it's like, oh shoot, I haven't done anything. But now you're seeing the effects of that 10-year time frame, over that. But then because he hadn't changed anything in that, maybe decade, 5-10 years, and then he goes and does that change, now it's like, it's just a massive reaction and adaptation to the fact that he hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
Whereas I think partly, now again, we're going to talk a little bit about the male-female differences, but you have been so good, over the last, 5 years, in terms of keeping your diet, pretty tight. You enjoy your drinks, right? You enjoy your alcohol,
probably even more than I'd say, almost going on 10 years. I forget how old I am sometimes.
See, I told you, I stopped counting at 26.
Yeah, I'm like, actually, it's probably been since I was about 26. Almost.
So you're coming up, you're coming up on that decade.
Yeah, a little closer to 10 years then.
But so you've been dialed in. So we talk a lot in the office about adaptation, right? And so your body has really become very well adapted to this idea of, okay, I am, I'm not eating a lot of excess processed sugar. I'm exercising regularly 5-6 days a week, and really, you're active 7 days a week. High intensity is what, probably 5-6 days a week. Yeah. So it's like, so your body has become very well adapted to that over 5+ years now. approaching a decade.
No, yeah. So, yeah. Didn't want to do that math in my head.
What's that one thing I saw recently? It's like, in the 1990s is the same distance as we're as far away from the 2020 is as far away from 1970 as 1970 is away from 1920
or something. Yeah, it was like, it was
like, ooh, that
like,
hurts.
whoa, no, that can't. Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, you've really become adapted to that, and so I think when we talk about dialing in your healthy weight, and like you said, it's a range, it's not a specific number. Yeah. That adaptation comes into play where sometimes you've got to make different changes.
Yeah.
When I got into fasting years ago, in 2018, again, I'm still a huge fan of fasting and integrating it. It's not like a weekly thing for me anymore, but like there are times on a monthly or quarterly basis that I really feel everyone would benefit from some level of fasting. Whether it's intermittent, long-term, combination of both. But when I got into the fasting a while back, and again, when ketogenesis was a huge deal, getting your body into ketosis, which is, the fat burning.
Yeah.
The one gentleman, Dr. Pompa, who, was teaching a seminar, he was talking about his wife who was going through, and she was a year in ketosis. So it was very, very strict about, and that means like your blood sugar is below a certain range, and basically your body is burning ketone bodies as its primary source of energy, which are the result of breaking down fat. And so she was, nutritionally, there's a certain range that it's called your GKI, it's glucose ketone index. There's a certain range that you keep your blood glucose and ketone range in to actually consider yourself nutritionally in ketosis. And she had done that for a full year. But she was feeling, like you said, feeling very sluggish at times, and especially around, menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
And so what Dr. Pompa talked to her about is like, because she was really craving carbohydrates during that time. And so, I'll give you a second here and speak to that. But so she started, after that 1 year timeline, and he showed a picture of her like doing a lat pull down and like the definition of her back when she was, fully in that, ketosis for like a year. And then she started adding carbohydrates, especially during the week of her menstrual cycle when she was craving them. So again, listening to her body, and she started adding them. And then, I think within a month or two, he took a post picture. It might have been 1, 2, 3. I forget how long it had been of her adding that carbohydrate to her routine. And the difference in definition was just night and day. Now, again, this is a woman who works out regularly, who's very, very nutritionally dialed in. And by listening to her body and adding the carbohydrates, it completely transformed, how her body was set up. Yeah. So I think that's the discussion we want to get into is, a lot of times, you hear, it's like, oh, I read this, or, this person did this and they lost all this weight, or, they started doing this activity, they lost all this weight. But what Dr. Pompa, postulated, and I actually, think it makes so much sense, is it's in the change, and the adapting to that change is what stimulates the body to make the breakdown and, start breaking away fat from different areas that it's been locked in at for a long time. So it's in that change of your system that kind of forces that adaptation in your body. And so neurologically now things start to adapt and improve. So I know, because I know recently you started doing that, right? With, before you would not do a lot of carbohydrates, but you started going back.
I'm probably eating more carbs now than
you ever have in your
college. And it's amazing. And not just like, I've always eaten like, sweet potatoes and, that rice and like the kind of healthier, what you would think of as the healthier carbs. But I eat bagels now. I'm eating pasta. And that's the one thing. And actually, when I was training for my fight, that was the first time I really noticed that, because again, I was eating super, super clean. I wasn't eating anything that I didn't prepare myself, because it's like, that's anytime I ate out. That was a major weight fluctuation that I couldn't like the thing is, if you've never done a weight class sport, good, don't ever do it.
Yeah.
It's probably the worst thing I've ever done for my physical and my mental. But it's, and especially for women where we can get that like such extreme weight fluctuations, it's like basically I had to know I couldn't take a chance on any like unexpected bumps. I had basically constantly be in control of what my weight was, because at some point I had to step on a scale and pass and be at a certain weight. So I was eating very, very clean, very controlled, but I still it was kind of like, it was stuck. There was like 5 pounds that just that last 5 pounds wouldn't come off. And my coach was clueless because he mostly had worked with men. Yeah. And even when he was a fighter, he's like, I don't know, I never had an issue making weight. It just, when you upped your training, the weight just came off, because that's how it works for men. It's like you start exercising more and you lose weight. But that's not how it works for women, because sometimes when you start exercising more, your body goes into survival mode and it doesn't let you lose that weight, especially when you're talking about those last couple pounds you're really trying to get off there. So then I was like, you know what? I feel like I don't have energy. I feel like my energy, my training's going down. So I started adding in some potatoes and rice and upping the carbs. And then the weight started coming down. And at that point, I basically threw my hands up and I'm like, all right, everything that's worked in the past, it's like we're in upside down world, opposite day.
Wacky Wednesday.
And I was tracking it was crazy. I literally have my notebook of like tracking every single thing I was eating. And I've done that over the years, just when I'm trying to be more mindful, and it's always been very effective. And lately, so I started doing that this past February. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to start journaling. I'm like, and I plan to start doing it as like a food journal. It ended up turning into I'm just going to track how I feel waking up, how I feel during my workouts, how I feel throughout the day. Do I have to nap in the afternoon? Do I feel like I need caffeine in the afternoon? So I actually started tracking those things, not what I was eating. And I would do a general, like, I feel like I ate pretty well today, or I feel like I ate like crap today. And it's interesting. There is zero correlation between the weeks I thought I ate well and the weight.
Wow.
In fact, the 1 week I think it was Friday, I was like, yeah, I really ate like crap this week. And then Saturday morning, I'm like, lowest my weight's been. I have no idea. I'm like, if I could draw a shruggy emoji, that would. And so, but it's interesting because again, the weeks I feel like I ate like crap, I'm really working on the mental. I'm like, did I really eat like crap? Or did I just eat things that I was programmed for so many years to think of are unhealthy? Like, did I just eat more pasta? Did I eat more? Was I eating more carbs? Was I eating more, things that I, for whatever reasons, society or just the way we were raised or what, being raised in that low carb era. Was I really eating badly, or was I just eating in a different way than I was so used to for so many years? And so I've really been just trying to be more mindful about that. And it's been really, it's definitely been the most interesting, weight. And I don't want to say I'm on a weight loss journey. Again, it was more about the way I felt, the way I was looking. And I just that change in that couple pounds can make a big difference when the couple pounds is coming from the areas you don't want, you don't want it to be sitting. I know you were just talking to a patient yesterday about that.
She was so concerned that she had just, she came through the holidays and she's been, doing, really what she was, implemented an intermittent fasting schedule since I got into it in 2018. And after I talked to her and, kind of consulted her way through it, she's been pretty strict on intermittent fasting for, probably 5+ years now. And so she had kind of gotten away from it over the last couple months. And she came into the office and she's like, I just, I feel like my weight's a little up. But it was interesting because as she's saying this stuff to me, I looked at her and I'm like, you actually look more toned than you have been. And I said, has anything changed with your activity level? And sure enough, she had just, recently passed the test to become a Silver Sneakers instructor. And again, if you know anything about that program, it's not just about, it's not just about the walking and the, that's the foundation, but she's teaching actual, resistance training. So not only is she doing it on her own, but then, coaching, clients through that. So, she's doing a lot of those workouts in conjunction. So her activity level is probably up significantly. And I told her, I'm like, you just look real toned. And I said, so you probably are gaining more muscle. And she's like, well, what does that even mean? Like, because a pound is a pound, right? So whether it's fat and I said, no, it's about density. And I told her, come here. And I take her over to the good old Dr. Google and just Google, 5 pounds of fat versus 5 pounds of muscle. And you look at the size of the fat next to the size of the muscle, it's significantly different. Even just do like 5 pounds of pasta versus, a pound of pasta versus a pound of steak. Like, I mean, it looks very, very different just in terms of the volume of it because of the density. And so and then I pulled up, going back to like, bodybuilding, I pulled up a picture of a gentleman who is the exact same weight at 200 pounds. And on the left picture, it was him. He was not very active. He was just kind of eating whatever. And he was not, focused on
non-competition mode.
In non-competition mode. And again, he looked very fluffy, would be the...
Yes, that's the term that we use.
He looked very non-defined. But then the picture next to it was him very well dialed in with his nutrition and workout. And again, he looked like, probably not a professional bodybuilder, but he looked like he could be, doing close to, kind of a classic physique competition, fitness competition. And again, same guy, same weight, extremely different definition and size. So, we always talk about not being so focused on the number on the scale. Now, again, like you said, it's a range.
Especially if you're someone like me, like I've tracked my weight my whole life. So again, I know, this, I'm not stepping on a scale for the first time and just comparing it to an arbitrary number. I'm comparing this to myself and years of, it turns out, hey, did you know you can track your weight in Fitbit? Dr. Dan has just recently discovered this beautiful technology, step trackers and all that they are capable.
This is my flipping her off face because I'm not actually going to put my finger up on camera.
So I literally probably have like 5 years of weight data, and what's interesting, again, what I'm trying to get better about, I know the times the weight's up because I stopped tracking it. Yeah. So there'll be like a couple months of there's no data. And so I'm like, I know what that means. That means I was at least up 10 pounds because I don't want to, So now I'm really, truly every day recording it, even if I don't like what it says. And I think that's important because I think, again, we talk about don't focus on the number on the scale, but also you don't want to ignore, it is a metric.
Yeah, it's one measurement.
Yes.
It's just not the only
measurement. No, not the only measurement, but it does, again, and it can, if you're not someone who's ever tracked your weight, it can just kind of help you understand, I think progress pictures are so important too, measurements,
the way your clothes feel.
That's what I mean. Like progress pic, that's like, pick an outfit, you see it all the time, pick an outfit and take a picture of yourself every week, or, every couple weeks in that same outfit. But then also if you have that to compare to the weight, I think mentally it can help you make that connection. Cause that's sort of where I've been at. I'm like, I need to realign this new number on the scale and remember it's not going to be, I don't want it to be back where it was at the fight weight. It's,
because you were feeling unhealthy.
I was not unhealthy. Yeah, I was not healthy. I might have looked better, but it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
So it's realigning, okay, this is where it's at now. This is what you look like, and creating that positive mindset around where I currently am. And that's where the journaling's been so healthy and helpful too, where it's like, I think it was last week, I'm like, every workout, I'm like, I felt amazing. And just, and again, that was only the difference of a couple pounds, but just it's like, okay, maybe you don't need to lose 15 pounds. Maybe you just needed to get that 5, that fluff, that extra fluff, just to just kind of help, help kickstart everything again.
That comes into the, just the whole, the whole concept of, recognizing where you're at in your health journey, right? Because, you mentioned that like, oh, I'm the heaviest I've been. Yes, I recently had that experience too after the new year.
Isn't that a fun moment of something? You're like, whoa, that's broken.
Never thought I would hit that
scale's
number.
Broken.
But the sad part is I kind of knew that's where I was.
Yeah, you even said before, because you said it'd been a while since you stepped on a scale, and you're like, because again, you're also aware, from being an athlete and tracking your weight throughout your life.
So I hadn't been working out as much, and then again, just letting the processed food get a little out of control, and again, the stress of owning and operating a business and a family, and life. So yes, we struggle at times as well.
Yes, we are not perfect.
But we do, try and exemplify, and that's why we come on here and talk about some of the vulnerabilities. We can struggle with with that as well. But I recently, stepped on there. And so again, I set some goals of what the number I wanted to get down to. But I also, I dropped, 15 pounds pretty quick. You talk about the men.
Yes, he was one of the ones where I'm like,
but I dropped 15 pounds pretty quick, but then, unfortunately we had a death in the family. And so, we were getting a bunch of food, brought to the house, which again is wonderful. But sometimes again, you're not being as conscious of what you're putting into your system. And so, so again, a couple weeks go by, didn't have any data. So then I stepped on it again this morning, and it's like, now I was only down 10 pounds from the original. So it's like
pretty good, which considering everything.
Yes, but what I did notice, even though I was only down 10, I have been very good with my activity level. And so my muscular strength has significantly gone through the roof. I am very close. The strongest I ever was in 2016 when I was working out 5 days a week. I had an accountability partner, Jason. I miss you, buddy, down in Florida. But we got together, and our only point was get to the gym between 5 and 5:30 every day. We're not planning a workout. We're just showing up. And when we get there, we'll figure out what we do when we get there. And that was by the end of that year, we did that 5 days a week, that entire year. And that was the strongest I had ever been, at the end of that year. And so I am, within 2 months now, I'm already getting close, probably within 10% of that strongest I've ever been. Now, again, I still want to get some of the weight off, but I know I'm building the foundation, right? Because, and we talk about all the time, when you start activating muscle, resistance training, hands down, I am absolutely I fell in love with resistance training, when I was probably 12, 13 years old. And again, have gone in and out of it throughout my life. But, getting back to it, it just reminds you how strong of a tool it is, pun intended, to be healthy, right? I mean, the infinite points that you can go down in terms of hormone regulation, especially insulin, which then, helps with blood sugar, which helps with, chronic disease prevention, which helps with weight, which helps with mental, emotional clarity, which helps with your sleep and your energy level. The infinite points you can go down when you do resistance training. Again, it's different than endurance training, running, very running on a treadmill. And again, that's important too.
Cardio is important too.
Cardio is important. Stretching mobility is important. But from a foundational perspective of activating your muscles to a point of fatigue, to the point where you have the DOMS the next day, delayed onset muscle soreness, where you're waking up the next day and it's like, oh, that's a little sore, because that is a muscle in active recovery. And when a muscle is in active recovery, it's very metabolically active, which means it's burning more energy. It's helping move the nutrients through your body, of all the stuff that you eat. And then if you're giving it good, healthy ingredients, now you've laid the foundation for your body to achieve its healthy weight. The challenge becomes when you do have people like us who are very active. What I see is when you fall out of that, that's when you get the fluctuations, and it's very easy to fluctuate, the 20, 30 pounds over the course of, 2-3 months, if you get out of the routine, because our bodies have become accustomed and very well adapted to the working out. So when you fall off of it, it's like, well, I'm just going to go right back to my, my unhealthy fluff. So,
and I think that's part of, I mean, not the stress, but then also, the lack of exercise in COVID, because that's the longest period I've gone without exercise. Since then. I mean, I other than being ill, I mean, I haven't missed more than 2 days at the gym, and I won't. I mean, I can't. I mean, at this point, it's more mental than physical. I mean, there's days my coach are like, take a day off. Nope. I was like, I did, and then I did something at home. He's like, that's not what I meant.
Well, that's what, and I've tried to follow my my Fitbit tracks cardio load, and it says hey, maybe you should take it easy today because you've been training really hard, which again is good.
And I think the thing too is it's like when you're I know I've seen the increase in your energy since you've gotten back to it, and so you can attest to that. Like once you're doing it regularly, your day off becomes different. Like my day off is going for a hike or going for a walk or, doing just, getting stuff done around the house. And
not just laying on the couch.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so, I mean, my day off, I still want to hit my 10,000 steps. I like to still get at least, 30 active minutes. Now it's not, it might not be break a sweat active minutes.
Correct.
But it's
your heart rate's up.
Yeah, you're moving. And that's the big difference too, is it's just, again, you crave it when you get that, when you feel that energy that you get, you don't want to take a day off from it. And I think that's the one thing I've noticed Sundays, because Sundays is one of my, that's my true rest day. I don't like my muscle rest day, but there's been a couple Sundays where, 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm sitting around, binge watching whatever show. And I'm like, I want to do something, and if it's if it's a nice day, I go out for a walk or a hike. If it's a crappy day, I put on, put on a show, and I'll just start walking in place. Or I have a BOSU at home, so I'll just like step up, step down from that just till I hit my steps. And I did that the one Sunday, and my Fitbit actually registered it as a run. So so I was like, okay, like my heart rate got up enough that it actually it counted it. So it's just things like that where, and again, that's why the journaling's been so helpful, because it's, on a day-to-day basis, it's easy to say, oh, I feel good. But then, you forget that, the next bad day comes around and you forget how good you were feeling those days. So if you're like that, and I think a lot of women are, again, we tend to, we focus on the bad days more than the good days, unfortunately, sometimes. So the journaling is so, and again, I'm like, I'm not track. I couldn't tell you what I ate yesterday. No, I could. We went out to lunch. It was delicious. That I can
stop talking about food.
I can remember. But generally, day to day, I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't do well with the major in-depth food tracking. I've tried it. It doesn't work for my mental. But the tracking, how I'm sleeping, how I'm feeling, how my workouts are, like, my mood, like all of that is just, that's been so beneficial. And then it just makes the day, the days I step on the scale and I'm like, that's not the number I was expecting to see, but it makes it that much easier to go, hey, but look at this. And then
I've been feeling great.
Yeah. And then it makes you appreciate the days and then it goes the other way. There's days I step on, I'm like, I think I'm going to be up a couple pounds, and it's down. So I'm like, I don't know. Like I said.
Well, and it just goes to show you how, especially, I mean, men's bodies go in cycles too, but women's especially, just geared around menstrual cycle, that, there is so much changing hormonally that, if you step outside the need to control the number and just go based on, okay, and again, it's just kind of getting in tune almost spiritually of like, okay, I'm just getting in tune with, what is, we talk about the innate intelligence, right? We have the power of, that made the body, heals the body. It's like, we call that innate intelligence in chiropractic. It's like, it's the intelligence of the body. You don't have to think about your insulin level and blood sugar level being regulated because your body does it automatically. You don't have to think about your heart rate going up when you exercise because your body does it automatically. That's auto-regulation, self-regulation. So in the female body, especially with the cycles, so much can change at such a microscopic level that if you take that, that need to control that number out of the equation, and just really focus on how am I adapting and changing and feeling, throughout my workouts, throughout my life, that can be a major, major impact. So I love that journaling concept.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it really helps. And then again, just working, working with the health provider. And I'm honest with people all the time when they're like, oh, well, what's the best diet? I'm like, I honestly have no idea at this point, because it's finding what works for you and your body and your energy, your metabolic level,
and again, there is some genetics to it as well. There are, the Inuit population has been shown, up in like the Arctic Circle, 70% of their diet is fat.
Yeah. They
70%.
Need
it. And it's the same thing with like kind of islander, population. It's like they are very, very high there, fish, seafood, because that's what they have access to.
Yeah.
And if you take that population and put them on a high grain diet, they blow up like balloons.
Yeah.
And, so that combination, that can have an impact.
Yes, I think I've been channeling our Italian.
Right. Right. But so we have more genetics around the east of the European, and Mediterranean Sea. And so, we probably have a little bit more of an ability to obtain more, grains in our diet, in a very positive effect. Your boyfriend, though, at African descent, right? Like, he, that pescatarian diet, much more fish. It's, there's
he's gonna add the red meat back in. It's
he's a true cowboy. He had steak, but yeah. So it's like, there's definitely a genetic component to that. Yes. But again, we all have the ability to adapt and try, and try different things. And so it's like, you have to dial it in and find what works for you. And sometimes what works for people is the change, right? Going from a, hey, really, higher fat, carb restricted diet to a, oh no, I'm going to add more healthy carbohydrates. Again, you're not eating cookies and and popsicles, but you're and donuts every now and again. But it's like you're eating, like you said, you're eating your pastas, and you cook at home a lot too, because I know you've mentioned that before as well, and I think that's a good point for people to understand, is that eating out is much different than, even if it's the same quote unquote meal.
Oh yeah, no.
Eating out, in terms of the amount of, salt and sugar and, additives that they can add.
That's the one thing
dressings,
I really noticed.
Sauces that they use. Yeah. That can really, kind of, because when you have some of those added preservatives, like salts and stuff, that the water, salt, water follows salt in the body. So it's like, if you take in a lot of salt and now that's in your cells, body holds on all that water and boom, and water is very heavy. So that's where you can very easily fluctuate 5 or 10 pounds in a day, just based on, a very salty or highly preserved meal. So, so cooking fresh at home has a big impact, but
just having, anything you can, when you can control the quality, the amount, what you're putting in it, what you're seasoning it with, it's just, the more control you have over it, I feel like the better off you're going to be. But I think, I just think ultimately, again, when we were kind of thinking about what we were going to talk about, I know that's kind of been on my mind. And I think it's a good reminder, not just for women, but for everyone, especially in this, the social media world that we live in, where you have all the influencers and all the, just, stop comparing yourself to other people. Stop, especially it's like, if you ever, it's like, you have a brother or a spouse or, a male counterpart that you're like, oh, I did this and, dropped all this.
Yeah, they dropped 50
and you're like, well, I found it. So, but actually, I'd say probably one of the most helpful, I don't even know. I wish I knew who it was. I could give credit to him, but again, it was one of those, I was having a rough day and, just happened to pop up, and she explained so well. It was one of those, she's like, stop, you're tracking everything you're doing, your exercise, your food every day. And you see yourself doing, you're doing everything right. You're doing everything right. Nothing's changing. But she had this big bowl of like 2 different color, beads in it, and it's like starts taking out, so you take out a week's worth, and it doesn't look any different. And you take out 2 weeks worth, still doesn't look any different. She's like, but look when we have 3 weeks, 4 weeks, like look how you can actually start to see a change in the bowl. And it was, and that was like right around the time I needed it. And it was right about the 4 week mark where I'm like, oh, I can actually start to see some things. And then it's like, she's like, yeah, and once you get to 4 weeks, then you get to 8 weeks, then get to 12 weeks. And I think that's such a good reminder, especially for women, because again, it's like you could have started your journey at the wrong part of your cycle. And that's why you're not seeing a change in the scale, or
maybe you saw a really rapid change,
and then it's maybe started at the right time,
and then it's like whoop, then it's right back up.
So
or worse.
So that's why, especially for women, it's really, really important to it's going to go up and down. It's going to happen. So to really be patient with it, which is can be very difficult, especially when you see all of the the quick success stories. So it's just, it's about your personal journey, focusing on, finding something internal. Again, external stuff can be a good motivation, but I think it's always important to focus on something internal, whether it's, how you feel, your energy, your sleep, something that only you, and really just making sure that you're finding something. Again, you can pay attention to the mirror and the clothes and that stuff too, but finding something else to hold on to, because I think that's going to get you through the tough times more than if it's all. Again, we're all going to have a picture taken where we're like, what the heck? How many chins do I have in that? We all.
Nope, don't look at me from that side.
Exactly. It's all we got. We're like, oh, I shouldn't have picked that. I shouldn't have worn that outfit. We all have those days.
That's why we're wearing black.
Yes, we did not coordinate this, by the way. Clearly, we're related.
Clearly.
But I think it's just a good reminder for women and everybody that, it's your health is for you. At the end of the day, it needs to be for you, and you need to.
And gain, the gain, they talk about gains a lot in, the fitness world. And it's like
the weightlifting world.
The weightlifting, bodybuilding, fitness world. It's like the gains, again, muscular definition, body composition, but that happens not over, days and weeks. That happens over months and years.
Yep. Absolutely.
So hopefully I think that was a fantastic conversation.
I feel like we needed this. I feel like we needed this.
Thank you for a therapy session. We appreciate you listening to our crazy vulnerability. But the woes of women's weight loss, weight journey.
Weight journey. Just the woes of women weight.
Women weight. I am Dr. Dan.
With Angela.
And if any of this resonated with you,
reach out.
Our information is always underneath. Feel free to catch us in the next one.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to another episode of What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game, with your hosts, Dr. Dan, Angela, and Dr. Riley. Brought to you by Churro Family Chiropractic. If you'd like to learn more about some of the resources mentioned on this show, or you have questions about something that was discussed, please reach out through our website at www.turofamilychiropractic.com. Remember to like and subscribe to What the Health Podcast to catch all the latest episodes and replay your favorites. Thank you for listening, and remember, we're always here to help when you find yourself saying, what the hell?